On ASEAN Highlight this week, we have an update on the Thai-Cambodian border tension. And then we go to the Philippines, where the Maoist rebels is holding negotiation with the government there. And lastly, we wrap things up by taking a look at all the religious and cultural ceremonies that the people in this region has been celebrating this past week. But first up, we have Myanmar, where NLD Party is celebrating their Union's Day.
Last Saturday marked the 64th anniversary of Myanmar's Union Day, and the country's pro-democracy icon Aung San Suu Kyi, along with hundreds of members of the now defunct opposition party, the National League for Democracy or NLD, held a gathering to commemorate the occasion at their party headquarters in central Yangon. On the day, Suu Kyi said in quotes, "On the anniversary of the Union Day, we need to reach a solution to build a real union with unity. People in the entire nation are needed to take part in building such a union." Myanmar's Union Day was recognized on February 12, 1946, when General Aung San, the father of Aung San Suu Kyi, reached an agreement with many of the country's ethnic leaders in the city of Panglong in Shan State. The agreement, which was supposed to pave way for a formation of a federal system after independence from the British Empire, died along with the assassination of General Aung San in July of 1947. At present, many people of Myanmar, both living inside and outside of the country, still hope for a second Panglong-type conference between the various political fractions in the country, because so far, the junta still alienated many people from their so-called political reform.
Thai and Cambodian relations remain unstable even after the situation was discussed at the United Nations Security Council earlier this week. More in this report. On Monday, the border dispute between Thailand and Cambodia were discussed at the United Nations Security Council, or UNSC, as the foreign ministers of Thailand, Cambodia and Indonesia met in New York and delivered their respective positions on the matter. The UNSC voiced grave concern about the recent clashes and called on both Thailand and Cambodia to establish a permanent ceasefire while work out their differences either through bilateral mechanism or through the mediation of ASEAN. Indonesian Foreign Minister Martina Talagawa, who attended the Security Council meeting in his capacity as the envoy of ASEAN current chair, told reporters that he would continue to facilitate dialogue between the two sides. The emergency meeting of ASEAN foreign ministers, scheduled to be held in Jakarta next week on February 22nd, will test the resolve of both Thai and Cambodian governments in their willingness to settle the border conflict peacefully. The meeting will also represent a major challenge for ASEAN to display whether its so-called quiet diplomacy can produce constructive result. At the same time, this crisis and Indonesia's role in it will play a part in determining whether the Republic of Indonesia is ready to take a more active role as a regional power in the current geopolitical landscape. A peaceful settlement to the conflict cannot ignore the issues that have caused the conflict in the first place. The listing of the 11th century Preah Vihear Temple as a World Heritage Site in 2008 by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO, at the request of Cambodia. Since decolonization, the border area near Preah Vihear has been a point of contention between Thailand and the newly formed Kingdom of Cambodia. In 1962, the temple dispute went to the International Court of Justice in The Hague, where it was ruled that the temple belongs to Cambodia. Many in Thailand felt they were wrong by The Hague then, and that feeling persisted for some over the years. In 2008, when the Brahman temple was listed as World Heritage Site, the history of animosity was dug up and politicized by the Nationalist People's Alliance for Democracy, and since then, the temple has re-entered Thailand's mainstream political discourse, resulting in the heightening of border tension and the worsening of bilateral relations. The listing of Preah Vihear by UNESCO meant that a management plan of the temple has to be submitted to the World Cultural Body, and Cambodia has submitted a draft of this plan in 2008. The present Thai government insisted that any management plan of the temple should be determined after the process of border demarcation between the two countries is finalized through the Joint Boundary Commission or JBC.
ตัวมรดกโลกนะครับมันไม่ได้มีความสวยงามเฉพาะตัวปราสาทพระวิหารอย่างเดียวนะครับแต่ว่าความสวยงามของมรดกโลก ปราสาทพระวิหารมันต้องมีพื้นที่ที่เกี่ยวเนื่องกับตัวมรดกโลกด้วยนะครับเพราะว่าในปี2505ซึ่งศาลโลกก็ได้ตัดสินให้ปราสาทพระวิหารนะครับอยู่ในอธิปไตยของประเทศกัมพูชานะครับเขาก็ได้พูดเพียงแต่ว่าตัวปราสาทพระวิหารนะครับแต่มันมีพื้นที่ต่อเนื่องมานะครับพื้นที่ต่อเนื่องซึ่งเป็นส่วนหนึ่งของพื้นที่ 4.6 ตารางกิโลเมตรนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นในการบริหารจัดการมรดกโลกเนี่ยมันต้องมีความเกี่ยวเนื่องกับพื้นที่ทับซ้อนอยู่นะครับซึ่งพื้นที่ทับซ้อนในขณะนี้ครับมันก็มีปัญหายังตกลงกันไม่ได้ยังไม่สามารถปักปันเขตแดนตรงนั้นกันได้นะครับซึ่งถ้าเราให้ประเทศกัมพูชาก็เสนอแผนจัดการอย่างที่เขาเสนอต่อคณะกรรมการมรดกโลกมันก็จะมีปัญหาเรื่องเขตแดนระหว่างไทยกับกัมพูชา
On the other hand, to the present Cambodian government, the border demarcation and the management of the 900 years old Khmer temple are separate issues entirely.
Well, that UNESCO as a World Heritage, we deal with the cultural only. We don't deal with any dispute area. We don't do involved with the land issue or border issue. We let the border issue involving with the JBC as a last part of doing that. So we don't want to mix the temporary here in the list of World Heritage. So they don't mix each other. And for a part of a land dispute or border dispute, only JBC is involved in that one.
Still at a loggerhead, the two countries are on yet another collision course over the management of the World Heritage Site in the near future, a point of contention that could worsen the already poor bilateral relation. It is a shame that the temple, built by the ancient Khmer almost a millennia ago and possesses intrinsic spiritual and cultural values to local communities on both sides of the border, as well as historical and archaeological values to humanity at large, should bring so much grievances and tragedy to many in its recent history. An academic has suggested in the past the idea of having the temple managed cooperatively by both countries. And unless pragmatism prevails over this latest episode of border tension and the interests of local people considered rather than nationalistic prides and outdated irredentism, a lasting peaceful settlement to this point of contentions will still be out of reach. Will the world's longest running communist insurgency end with a peace talk between the Philippines government and the Maoist rebels there? More in the story. On Tuesday, the Philippine government and Maoist communist rebels sat down for their first formal peace negotiation in more than 6 years. The negotiation, facilitated by Norway, was held in Oslo. The talks are not expected to produce immediate results to end an insurgency that dates back half a century, but the sides may agree to hold more talks and extend a ceasefire. The government and the Maoist rebels have been in stop-start negotiations for nearly 25 years to end one of the world's last remaining communist insurgencies in which 40,000 people have been killed so far. Teresita Cuantas Teles, the Philippine president's advisor to the peace process, said social and economic reforms would be discussed at the closed-door negotiations to unblock the road to peace, and that both sides have been guilty of believing that arms will win the day and sidelining mediation efforts. The communist movement's 4,000-strong New People's Army has been blamed for attacks and extortion on mines, farms, construction and other businesses, including mobile phone companies, scaring away potential investors from rural areas. Last week, government negotiators said there were optimistic talks would produce results in 18 months and saw peace achievable in 3 years' time if both sides were sincere. Analysts do not share that optimism, saying there are many serious obstacles to the peace talks, although the negotiations could reduce violence, particularly human rights abuses. The NPA has tried to overthrow the national government since the late 1960s and has kept fighting even after democracy was restored in 1986. And wrapping things up this week, we take a look at some of the religious and cultural celebration that has been going on this past week in Southeast Asia. On Monday saw the celebration of Valentines Day across the region as couples and lovers celebrated the Day of Love named after a Christian saint. In Thailand, 43 couples took elephant back ride at the Ban Tha Klang Elephant Sanctuary in northeastern Surin province as part of a wedding ceremony blessed by their elders. The couples then took elephant procession around the village as their guests and visitors cheering before receiving their marriage certificate from the district registrar. On Tuesday, Muslims in Malaysia celebrated Prophet Muhammad's birthday. In the capital Putrajaya, a crowd gathered at Putra Square before walking in a procession for 2.4 kilometers to Qiblat Walk at the Tunku Mizan Zainal Abidin Mosque. Malaysian King Tunku Mizan Zainal Abidin attended the celebration at the mosque and addressed the gathering while he called on Malaysians to discard the feeling of distrust and forge greater unity between the people of Malaysia, echoing the One Malaysia, One Ummah official theme of the occasion. Also present at the event were Prime Minister Najib Razak and several cabinet ministers. Also on Tuesday, the northern Thai town of Phitsanulok celebrated the Lantern Festival, known in Chinese as UNSC, which is usually commemorated at the first full moon night of the new year in the Chinese calendar. The city embellished with tens of thousands of lanterns for the festival, which ran from Tuesday to Thursday. Lion dance troupes performed the energetic and colorful dances in celebrating the Chinese tradition. Meanwhile, in Malaysia, the Malaysian Chinese in Kuala Lumpur flocked to a recreation park on Thursday to commemorate the Lantern Festival. Chap Gourmet, meaning the 15th night in the Hokkien dialect, marks the end of the Lunar New Year celebration. Many took part in activities like lantern riddles and releasing of sky lanterns for the occasion, as well as the decade-old custom of tangerine tossing, which was originated in northern Malaysia. It is believed that by tossing tangerines into the water, unmarried women could potentially meet their future husbands. On Friday, Buddhist Thais marked the Maka Bhucha day to celebrate the day when 2,500 Buddhist monks who were all ordained by Lord Buddha gathered at a temple without any appointment for the Lord Buddha's sermon. Buddhists all over the kingdom make merit and give alms for the occasion from the heart of Bangkok through to other provinces as well. In Buriram province, for instance, locals offer food to monks and novices at the Phra Aram Luang temple while praying for peace at the border between Thailand and Cambodia. And that's it for this edition of ASEAN Highlight. And on behalf of the ASEAN News team here, I hope you all have a lovely weekend and Sawasdee krab.